Wyoming Territory, November 1918. The fire crackled low in the stone hearth. Outside the ranch house window, the first snow of winter drifted down through gathering dusk. Samuel Fletcher sat in the leather chair his hands had worn smooth over 30 years, watching flakes settle on frozen ground. 60 years old now, gray threading through dark hair, lines carved deep around eyes that had seen too much and somehow not enough. Across from him, his grandson Benjamin stared into the flames. 20 years old. Barely. The boy had come home from France 3 weeks ago with mud still under his fingernails and screams still trapped in his throat. Shell shock, the doctors called it. Samuel knew better names. He had learned them from a man who rode a black horse through a Montana blizzard 52 winters past. Benjamin shifted in his chair. The movement carried weight, hesitation. Finally words came. "Grandfather, I need to tell you something." Samuel waited. Patience was a gift from hard years. "I can't stay here. Can't work the ranch. Can't sleep. Can't." The young man's voice fractured. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the trenches at Verdun. Watching men die, hearing them scream. I killed people, grandfather. Boys younger than me, and I don't know how to live with that." The old man let silence settle. Then he spoke, voice steady as winter stone. "Let me tell you about the winter my mother walked into a blizzard planning to give us away, and how a stranger carrying his own war came through the storm and changed everything." Benjamin looked up, eyes hollow but listening. "This isn't a story about heroes, Ben. It's about broken people learning they could heal. About accepting help when pride said refuse. About choosing to fight when surrender seemed easier." Samuel leaned forward. "Your great-grandfather Cole taught me something in that blizzard. Sometimes mercy wears boots and rides a black horse. And sometimes the most courageous thing a damaged man can do is stop running." He settled back. The fire popped. Snow fell harder now. Montana Territory, December 18th, 3 days into the worst blizzard anyone could remember. Montana Territory, December 18th. Margaret Fletcher's hands shook as she buttoned Emma's threadbare coat. The fabric was more holes than wool, 2 sizes too small. Charity from a neighbor's daughter who had outgrown it before Margaret's world collapsed. That coat had felt like kindness 4 months ago. Now it felt like counting the days until her daughter froze. Outside the cabin, wind screamed. Not howled, screamed, like something dying in the white. Inside, her children were already halfway there. She had made her choice. Better they live with strangers than die watching their mother fail them. The walk to Fort Benton would kill her. 2 miles through a blizzard that had already buried the territory in 3 feet of snow. But it would save them. Mrs. Thornton at the boarding house knew families. Good families with warm houses and food and futures. Margaret would get her children there. She would place them in Mrs. Thornton's capable hands. She would walk back out into the storm and let it take her. Fair trade. 2 lives for 1. She finished the last button, looked at Emma's face. 5 years old, blonde curls that used to bounce when she laughed. Hollow cheeks now, eyes too large, too knowing. In the corner, Samuel coughed. That wet, rattling cough that shook his whole frame and terrified Margaret more than the storm. 8 years old, dark hair like his father. Serious eyes that had stopped asking questions 2 weeks ago when he realized his mother had no answers left. William had been dead 4 months. The mine collapse that took him had been ruled an accident. Company lawyer found a clause. Some exception. Some reason why a widow and her babies didn't deserve death benefits. The insurance money disappeared into legal language Margaret couldn't decipher and couldn't afford to fight. She had tried everything, took in washing until her hands bled from lye soap, sold William's tools, her mother's china, her wedding ring, begged the bank for more time, got on her knees in front of men who looked through her like she was already a ghost. This morning she had boiled the last handful of oats into paste so thin you could see through it, divided it between Samuel and Emma, told them she had already eaten. The lie came easy now. That was how she knew it was over. "Mama," Emma's voice drifted up, small, tired. "Is Papa coming home today?" The question landed like a blade between Margaret's ribs. She had stopped trying to explain death to a 5-year-old. "No, baby. But I'm cold. I know. Really cold, Mama." Margaret closed her eyes, pressed her forehead against the frozen window until it burned. Behind her, Samuel's cough ripped through the silence. When it finally stopped, his breathing sounded like wind through a cracked door. She turned, looked at them. Really looked. Samuel was 8 but seemed older. Used to read everything he could find. Books, newspapers, labels on tin cans. Now he just stared at nothing, saving his energy for breathing. Emma had been her father's shadow. Followed William everywhere, talking nonstop about butterflies and horses and whether clouds had feelings. Now she was so quiet, Margaret sometimes forgot she was in the room. They were dying, slowly, quietly dying in front of her, and Margaret was powerless to stop it. The decision crystallized like ice forming on still water. Clear, cold, inevitable. She crossed the room, knelt beside them, pulled them both into her arms, even though it hurt. Even though the pain of holding them, knowing what she was about to do, felt like drowning. Listen to me, both of you. Listen very carefully. Samuel's eyes found hers. Emma burrowed deeper into her chest. We're going into town today to see Mrs. Thornton at the boarding house. Why mine? Samuel asked. Always asking why. Even now. Margaret's voice cracked. She forced it steady through sheer will. Because Mrs. Thornton knows families. Good families. Families who have warm houses and food. Are we going to stay with them? Hope flickered in Samuel's voice. Hope was worse than the coughing. You are baby, you and Emma. Silence. Then understanding dawned in Samuel's eyes. Without you, Margaret couldn't answer. Her throat had closed completely. Samuel pulled back, stared at her with eyes too old for his face. Mama, no. It's just for a little while. You're lying. His voice rose, cracked. You're lying. You're leaving us. The accusation dissolved into that terrible cough that shook his whole frame. Emma started crying, not loud, just tears sliding down hollow cheeks. I'm not leaving you, Margaret said, hating herself for the lie, hating the truth more. I'm saving you. There's a difference. I don't want to be saved. I want to stay with you. That's not one of the choices, baby. Samuel's next words came quiet, devastating. Then I choose dying. Margaret grabbed his shoulders. Don't you ever say that. Don't you ever. Her voice broke completely. She pulled him close. Emma, too. Held them both while they cried. She didn't cry. If she started, she would never stop. It's going to be all right, she whispered. I promise. You'll have food and warm beds and people who can take care of you properly. But Samuel had stopped listening. He was 8 years old and smart enough to recognize a fantasy when he heard one. Margaret dressed them in every layer they owned. Samuel's coat was 2 sizes too small, sleeves ending 3 inches above his wrists. She dressed herself in the black dress she had worn to William's funeral. Seemed appropriate. She was burying something today, too. Are we walking, Samuel asked. Yes. In this, he gestured at the window where snow pelted the glass like thrown salt. We don't have a choice. We could wait until the storm stops. We can't wait anymore. He understood. She could see it in his face. They were out of time, out of food, out of everything except the awful math of survival that said 2 children might make it if 1 woman didn't. Margaret opened the door. The blizzard screamed in like something alive, something angry. Snow bit exposed skin. Wind tried to shove them back inside. The cold was so intense it burned. Stay close, Margaret shouted over the wind. Hold on to my skirt. Don't let go. They stumbled into the storm. The world disappeared immediately. White everywhere. White above. White below. White in every direction until there was no direction. Just endless, frozen chaos. Wind howled like wolves. Snow stung their faces. Cold sank claws into bones. Margaret kept moving, 1 foot forward, then another. Samuel's hand fisted in her skirt on one side, Emma on the other. She was their anchor, their guide, the only thing keeping them from disappearing into the white. Time stopped meaning anything. They could have been walking for minutes or hours. Margaret's legs moved on their own. Her lungs burned. Ice formed on her eyelashes. But she kept moving. Mama, I can't feel my feet, Emma cried. Keep walking. I'm scared. I know, keep walking. They had been moving for maybe 20 minutes when Samuel's hand suddenly released her skirt. Margaret's heart stopped. She whirled around. Samuel had fallen, just collapsed into the snow, his body folding like something broken. Samuel, she dropped beside him, pulled him up. His eyes were open, but unfocused. His lips were blue. Stay with me, Samuel. Stay with me. Can't. The whisper barely reached her. So tired, Mama. No, no, you don't get to be tired. Get up. Just let me rest, just for a minute. She knew what happened to people who rested in blizzards. They didn't get back up. Emma, help me. Together they hauled Samuel to his feet. He swayed, nearly fell again. I can't do it. Can't walk anymore. Margaret looked around desperately. Nothing but white, no landmarks, no shelter. They had barely made it a quarter mile and her son was already giving up. This was it. This was how they died. Not in the cabin waiting for starvation. Here, frozen in a storm. Together. Maybe that was better. Maybe dying together was the mercy she had been too proud to pray for. She was about to say something when Emma screamed, Mama, look! Through the snow, a shape, dark against white, moving, coming toward them. A man on horseback. He materialized from the blizzard like something conjured. Tall in the saddle, shoulders broad under a long coat, hat pulled low against the storm. The horse beneath him was huge, dark, steam rising from its nostrils. The rider pulled up short when he saw them. For a moment, nobody moved. Just a frozen tableau. Dying woman and her children. Mysterious stranger. Blizzard raging around them all. Then the man swung down from his horse in one fluid motion. Military precision. Sweet Christ. His voice was rough, deep, controlled. What are you doing out here? Margaret tried to answer, couldn't. Her teeth were chattering too hard. The man looked from her to the children and back. His eyes were dark, hard, but not cruel. He was maybe 30-something, face weathered and scarred. One scar across his jaw looked like a saber cut. Where are you headed? He demanded. Town. Margaret managed. Fort Benton. That's 2 miles. You'll never make it. Have to. Why, Kishon? How did you explain the math of starvation to a stranger? How did you say you were taking your children to town to give them away because watching them die was worse than losing them forever? The stranger seemed to read something in her silence. His jaw tightened. There's a line shack half-mile north. Old trapper's shelter. You'll freeze before you reach town, but we can make the shack. No, have to get to town. Have to. The man's voice dropped. Not threatening, but absolute. Lady, I don't know what you think you need to do in Fort Benton, but you won't do it dead. Now you got 2 choices. Come with me to shelter or stand here arguing until you freeze. Which is it? Samuel coughed. That wet, terrible sound. Margaret looked down at him, at Emma, both of them shaking, lips blue, eyes glazed. All right, she whispered. The stranger nodded once, turned to his horse. You, he said to Samuel, can you ride? Samuel nodded weakly. The man lifted him like he weighed nothing. Proper carry, supporting the spine. Set him on the horse's back with care. Turned to Emma. You 2 little bit. He swung Emma up behind her brother, steadied her. You'll have to walk, he said to Margaret. Horse can't carry 4, but I'll break trail. Stay right behind me. You fall, I'll know. Why are you helping us? The question came out before she could stop it. The stranger's face was unreadable. Because if I don't, you'll die. And I've seen enough people die. He didn't elaborate. Took the horse's reins, started walking north, into the storm, into white nothing. Margaret followed. She stopped thinking. Stopped feeling. Just put one foot in front of the other. The stranger was a dark shape ahead of her. The horse, her children. She focused on them. Nothing else existed. Not the cold, not the wind, not the future she had been walking toward before this man appeared. Then the stranger stopped. There. Margaret looked up, saw a structure, small, half buried in snow, but solid, real. The stranger moved fast, tied the horse on the lee side of the shack, lifted the children down, pushed open the door. Inside. Now. The space was tiny. 1 room, dirt floor, stone fireplace. But it was shelter. That was enough. The stranger was already moving. Get them out of those wet clothes. There's blankets in the chest. I'll get a fire going. He knelt at the fireplace, produced flint and steel from inside his coat. Struck once, twice, 3 times. Spark caught dried moss he kept in an oilskin pouch. He blew gently. Small flame grew. Added kindling graded by size. Small to large. Military precision. Within minutes, real fire. Heat beginning to radiate. Blankets. He pointed to a wooden chest. Margaret found them. Wool. Heavy, musty, but dry. Wrapped the children. They huddled near the fire, teeth still chattering, but no longer blue. The stranger stood, looked at her directly. Now you. I'm fine. You're soaked through. Take off wet clothes or die of pneumonia before sunrise. I said I'm fine. His voice dropped. Not unkind. Listen to me. I just saved your life and your kids' lives. Don't throw that away because you're too proud to get warm. There's no shame in survival. Something in his voice. Not pity, understanding, recognition. Margaret's resistance crumbled. She turned away, struggled with frozen buttons. Her fingers wouldn't cooperate. Let me, the stranger said quietly. No. Your fingers don't work, mine do. Turn around. She turned. He unbuttoned her coat with efficient, impersonal movements. No hesitation, no fumbling. Slides the coat off her shoulders. Handed her a blanket. Turned his back while she stripped the wet dress. Wrapped herself in wool. Done? He asked the wall. Yes. He turned. Studied the three of them. Wrapped in blankets. Huddled by fire. Still shaking, but alive. All right. Now somebody want to tell me why you were walking to Fort Benton in a blizzard. Silence. Must be a damn good reason to risk killing yourself. And 2 kids. More silence. The stranger crouched. Looked at Margaret directly. His eyes were dark brown, steady, patient. I'm not the law. I'm not anybody. But I just spent the last hour keeping you alive. Figure I earned an answer. Margaret met his gaze. Saw something unexpected. Patience and something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. Like he had been where she was. I was going to give them away. She said it flatly. No emotion left. Pause. The children. Yes. Why? Because I can't feed them. Can't keep them warm. Can't. Her voice broke. My husband died. Mine company took everything. I tried. I tried everything. But they're starving and I can't watch them die. So I was taking them to Mrs. Thornton in Fort Benton. She finds homes for orphans. Good homes where they'll have food and heat and when she couldn't finish. And you were just going to give them up just like that, anger flared. You think this is easy. You think I want this. Pause. I don't know you well enough to say. I'm trying to save them by abandoning them. Yes. The word tore out. Yes, because that's the only way they survive. So judge me if you want. Call me a terrible mother. But those children will live because of what I was about to do. And I'll burn in hell knowing they're alive and fed. She couldn't continue. The words choked her. Emma had started crying again. Samuel just stared at the fire. The stranger was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What's your name?" "Margaret. Margaret Fletcher. Everyone calls me Maggie." "I'm Cole Bennett." He stood, moved to the door, opened it. Wind screamed in. He looked out at the storm, at the white chaos, closed the door, turned back. "Storm's getting worse. We're stuck here tonight. Maybe longer." Pause. "So here's what's going to happen. We're going to wait this out, all of us. And then tomorrow or whenever this blizzard breaks, we're going to talk about options." There are no options. There are always options. You just can't see them because you're drowning. But I can see them, and I'm going to show you. Why? Why what? Why do you care? We're nothing to you. Strangers, you could have should have. Cole looked at her, then at the children. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, careful. "Had a sister once. She was about your daughter's age when she died. Scarlet fever. My parents couldn't afford the doctor. By the time we scraped together enough money, it was too late." He paused, stared at the fire. "I was 12, old enough to know we were poor. Not old enough to do anything about it. Watched her die. Watched my parents break. Swore if I ever had a chance to help someone else's kid, someone else's family, I would. Another pause. That was before the war. Maggie caught it. The war fought for the Union, 5 years. Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia. His voice went flatter. Saw a lot of death there too. Different kind, bloodier, more pointless. Understanding dawned, his military precision, his comfort with emergency, his silence, his isolation. So this is about your sister, Maggie said. This is about doing what nobody did for us. Cole's eyes were distant. Before the war, during the war, after the war. This is about being the person I needed when I came back and everyone looked at me like I was broken. Pause. This is about maybe fixing one thing in a world where too much is broken. Heavy silence settled over the shack. Maggie whispered, "What do you do for work?" "I wrangle horses, break them for riding, train them for pulling. Worked a dozen ranches from Texas to Oregon." He looked at her directly. "I'm headed to the Ashford Ranch to take a job as head wrangler. Room and board included. Good pay. And how does that help us?" "Because the Ashford Ranch is huge. Mrs. Rebecca Ashford runs it herself. Husband died 5 years back. She's always looking for workers, kitchen staff, laundry, household help." He paused. "And they house families. Whole families. Kids included." Hope fluttered in Maggie's chest. Dangerous. Painful. "You're saying..." "I'm saying there might be another option besides giving away your children. If you're willing to work. If you're willing to trust a stranger." "I don't even know you." "No, but you trusted me enough to follow me here. Trust me a little further." Samuel spoke for the first time in an hour. His voice was small, hopeful. "Mama, can we stay together?" Maggie looked at her son, at her daughter, both watching with eyes too old for their ages, then at Cole Bennett, this stranger offering impossible hope. "All right," she whispered. "All right, show me these options." Cole nodded once. "Get some rest, all of you. Morning will come soon enough." He moved to the far corner of the shack, sat with his back against the wall, pulled his hat low over his eyes. But Maggie noticed he didn't sleep. He kept watch. Guarding them even now, she gathered her children close. The fire crackled. Outside, the blizzard raged. But inside this tiny shelter, for the first time in 4 months, Maggie felt something besides despair. She felt possibility. "Mama," Emma whispered, "is he a good man?" Maggie looked across the fire at the stranger who had saved them. "I think so, baby. I think he might be. Are we going to be okay?" Such a simple question, such an impossible answer. But for the first time since William died, Maggie didn't lie. "I don't know, but maybe. Maybe we are." Samuel's hand found hers under the blanket, squeezed once. Across the fire, Cole Bennett sat motionless, watchful, a guardian against the storm. And Maggie, who had walked into a blizzard planning to give away her children, closed her eyes and let herself believe in second chances. Morning came with silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of wind. That's what pulled Maggie from sleep. The storm had stopped screaming. She opened her eyes. Gray light filtered through gaps in the shack's walls. The fire had burned down to embers. Samuel and Emma were still asleep, pressed against her sides, their breathing steady and warm. Across the room, Cole was already awake, already dressed. He was adding wood to the fire with quiet, efficient movements. "Storm passed," he said without looking at her. "We can move once the sun's higher. Need to warm them up first." Maggie sat up carefully, trying not to wake the children. Her body ached. Everything hurt. But it was the hurt of survival, not dying. There was a difference. "How far to this ranch?" she asked. 8 miles, maybe 9 with the snow." "Can the children walk that far?" "They won't have to. Horse can carry them if we go easy." Cole finished with the fire, sat back on his heels. "I was scouting. Ranch wants to know about the north pastures before spring. How many head they lost over winter. Whether the water's still good. Storm came up fast. Was trying to make it back when I saw you." "Lucky timing. Is that what you call it?" "Luck." Maggie thought about that. About how close they had come to dying. About how this stranger had appeared exactly when they needed him. about how many times in the past 4 months she had prayed for help and gotten nothing until yesterday. "I don't know," she said finally, "but it feels like more than luck." Cole stood, moved to the door, opened it. Brilliant white light flooded in. Snow had drifted against the shack in smooth, perfect curves. The sky beyond was that hard, clear blue that came after big storms, beautiful and deadly. "We should eat something before we start." He produced jerky from his saddlebags. Hard bread. Not much, but more than Maggie had seen in weeks. She woke the children gently. They were groggy, confused. Emma looked around the unfamiliar shack with wide eyes. "Where are we?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Maggie said. "Mr. Bennett saved us from the storm." Emma looked at Cole with solemn curiosity. "Are you an angel?" Cole's mouth twitched, almost smiled. "No, little bit, just a man who happened to be in the right place. Mama says angels look like regular people sometimes, so they can help without scaring you. Your mama sounds like a smart woman." They ate slowly, carefully, people who had learned not to waste food. Cole wrapped the children in blankets, lifted them onto his horse, the big black gelding with patient eyes. "What's his name?" Emma asked, patting the horse's neck. "Timber." "That's a good name. He's a good horse, saved my life more than once." "Really, how?" "That's a story for the road. Let's get moving." They set out into the transformed world. Everything was white and clean and silent. The sun was blinding off the snow. Trees bent under their frozen burden. The cold was intense but different from yesterday, still and sharp instead of violent. Cole walked ahead, breaking trail leading Timber by the reins. Maggie followed in his tracks. The children rode bundled together, Emma in front, Samuel behind his arms around his sister. For a while nobody spoke. They were all too focused on moving, on breathing, on the physical work of traveling through deep snow. Then Emma said, "Mr. Bennett, will you tell us the story now about how Timber saved you?" Cole glanced back. "You really want to hear it?" "Yes, please." "All right, it was 2 winters ago. I was working a ranch down in Wyoming territory. Late season blizzard came through. Boss sent me out to check on some cattle trapped in a ravine. Stupid thing to do in a storm, but I was—" He paused. "Well, I wasn't thinking clear those days." "Why not?" Samuel asked. Cole's honesty was unexpected. "War had been over 3 years, but I was still fighting it in my head. Took foolish risks because part of me didn't much care what happened." Maggie watched him carefully. This admission carried weight. "Anyway, found the cattle, got them moving towards shelter. But on the way back, storm got worse. Couldn't see 3 feet. Lost my bearings completely. Started going in circles. Would have frozen to death if Timber here hadn't known the way home." "What did you do?" Emma asked. "Gave him his head, let him choose the direction. And he walked us straight back to the barn like he had a compass in his skull." "Horses are smart," Samuel said. "Smarter than people sometimes. They don't overthink things. Just know what they know and trust it." Cole paused. "That's something I learned from horses that saved my life more than once. Sometimes you got to trust your instincts instead of your thoughts. Thoughts can lie to you, instincts usually don't." They walked for hours, stopped occasionally to rest, to drink melted snow from a canteen Cole carried, to give the children a chance to stretch their legs, though they never wandered far from the horse. Around midday they crested a ridge. Suddenly the landscape opened up. Below them a valley spread out, white and perfect. And in the distance, buildings, barns, corrals, a large house with smoke rising from multiple chimneys. "There," Cole said, "Ashford Ranch." "It's so big," Emma breathed. "One of the biggest operations in Montana territory. Mrs. Ashford runs about 2,000 head of cattle, employs 25 workers year-round, more during calving season." Samuel's voice was carefully neutral, trying not to hope too hard. "And they'll hire Mama." Cole's answer was careful. "Can't promise anything, but Mrs. Ashford is fair. If your mother's willing to work hard, there's a good chance." They descended into the valley. As they got closer, details emerged. Split rail fences buried in snow, cattle clustered near feeding stations. Men working despite the cold, their breath visible in the crisp air. A rider spotted them, approached at a trot. He was young, maybe 20, friendly face. "Cole, that you mutt?" It's me, Fletcher. We thought maybe the storm got you. Mrs. Ashford's been watching the road since yesterday. Cole gestured toward Maggie and the children. Found these folks in trouble? Mrs. Margaret Fletcher and her children Samuel and Emma. They need work and shelter. The young man's expression shifted, became more guarded. That's for Mrs. Ashford to decide. I know. Where is she? Main house, but Cole? He hesitated, dropped his voice. You know how she is about charity cases. This isn't charity. Mrs. Fletcher's looking for honest work. There's a difference. Fletcher looked doubtful but didn't argue. All right, I'll let her know you're coming. He wheeled his horse and galloped toward the big house. Cole turned to Maggie. Maggie, fair warning. Mrs. Ashford is tough. Lost her husband 5 years ago to cancer. Ran this place herself ever since. She doesn't suffer fools and doesn't make exceptions. But she's honest. You'll get a fair hearing. What if she says no? Then we figure out the next step, but don't borrow trouble. They continued toward the house. Maggie's heart hammered. Everything depended on the next hour. On what this Miss Ashford decided. On whether a stranger would take a chance on a desperate widow and her starving children. The main house was impressive up close. 2 stories, painted white. Real glass in all the windows. A wide porch wrapped around 3 sides. Smoke rose from 2 chimneys. It looked warm, solid. Everything Maggie's cabin hadn't been. A woman stood on the porch waiting. She was tall, maybe 50, gray hair pulled back severe. She wore a dark dress and an expression that gave nothing away. Cole helped the children down from timber. Maggie smoothed her borrowed blanket, suddenly aware of how she must look. Half frozen, desperate, poor. Mrs. Ashford, Cole touched his hat brim. This is Mrs. Margaret Fletcher and her children Samuel and Emma. Mrs. Ashford's sharp eyes moved over them, assessing, calculating. Cole says you need work. Maggie's voice came out stronger than she felt. Yes, ma'am. I can cook, clean, so do laundry, whatever needs doing. I'm a hard worker. I won't complain and I won't let you down. Experience? I managed my own household for 6 years. Before that, I worked at my father's hotel back in Boston. I know how to run a kitchen, how to manage inventory, how to work with staff. Your husband? The question was blunt. Dead. Mine collapsed 4 months ago. Company found a way not to pay benefits. Mrs. Ashford's assessment was cold. Clearly that didn't work out. The words stung because they were true. No, ma'am, it didn't. And now you show up at my door with 2 half-starved children expecting me to fix your problems. Maggie's spine straightened. Her voice hardened. No, ma'am, I'm not expecting anything. I'm offering to work, to earn my keep and my children's. If you don't want me, say so. We'll move on. But don't pretend I'm asking for charity when I'm offering labor. Silence stretched. Mrs. Ashford's eyebrow raised slightly. You've got spine, I'll give you that. I've got more than spine. I've got 2 children who need feeding and a willingness to do whatever it takes to feed them. That makes me valuable whether you see it or not. More silence. Mrs. Ashford studied Maggie like a horse being considered for purchase. Finally, she stepped off the porch, walked closer, looked directly at Samuel and Emma. You too. Can you work? Samuel straightened. Yes, ma'am. I can carry things. Feed animals, whatever you need. Emma added quietly, I can help, Mama. Mrs. Ashford nodded slowly, turned back to Maggie. Here's my offer. You'll work in the main house, cooking, cleaning, laundry, 6 days a week, Sundays off. Pay is $20 a month plus room and board. There's a small cabin behind the kitchen house. 2 rooms, wood stove. It's yours if you want it. Children stay with you. They can help with light chores when able. She paused. Any problems, any complaints, any laziness. You're out, understood. Maggie's throat closed. She couldn't speak, could only nod. I need words, Mrs. Fletcher. Yes, Maggie's voice cracked. Yes, I understand, and thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. You haven't started working. Thank me in a month if you're still here. Mrs. Ashford turned to Cole. Get them settled, then come see me. We need to talk about the north pastures. Yes, ma'am. She headed back inside. The door closed behind her. Cole touched Maggie's shoulder gently. Come on, let's get you and the kids warm. He led them around the main house to a smaller structure. The cabin was simple but solid, one room with a bed and a table, a second smaller room with two narrow beds, a real wood stove, windows with actual glass. To Maggie, it looked like a palace. I'll have someone bring firewood, Cole said, and food. Mrs. Ashford will want you to start tomorrow, but today you rest. Get warm. Let the children recover. Mr. Bennett, Maggie's voice broke. I don't know how to thank you. Don't need thanks, he struggled with words. Just take care of those kids. Give them a life. That's thanks enough. He turned to leave. Samuel stopped him. Mr. Bennett, will we see you again? Cole looked down at the boy. Something softened in his hard face. I work here now. So yeah, little man, you'll see me around. Good, Emma said firmly, because you're our angel, and angels are supposed to stay close. This time Cole smiled. Small but real. I'll do my best little bit. After he left, Maggie sank onto the bed. The children climbed up beside her. For a long moment, they just sat there. Alive. Together. Safe. Mama, Samuel whispered, is this real? Yes, baby. It's real. We're not going to be separated. No, we're staying together. Emma started crying. Not sad tears, relief tears. I was so scared. I know, me too. Someone knocked. A young woman entered carrying blankets, bread, and a pot of stew that smelled like heaven. Mrs. Ashford sent these. Said to eat and rest. She'll speak with you tomorrow about your duties. Thank you. The woman left. That night they ate, first real meal in months, slept in real beds with full stomachs. Maggie lay awake long after the children had fallen asleep. She thought about the past 24 hours, about how close they had come to dying, about Cole appearing from the storm like an answered prayer, about the second chance they'd been given. She thought about William, about his dreams of making it on their own, about how his pride had kept them isolated until it was too late, about how she had almost made the same mistake. I'm sorry, she whispered to the darkness, to William's memory. I'm sorry I couldn't save what we built. But I saved them. I saved our children. I hope that's enough. Wyoming, 1918, elderly. Samuel paused. The fire crackled. Benjamin leaned forward, firelight playing across his young, haunted face. So Mr. Bennett saved you. He did, but that was just the beginning. Saving someone's life in a blizzard, that's one thing. Helping them build a new life after that's something else entirely. What happened next? Samuel smiled, seaward and knowing. What always happens when broken people come together? They either heal each other or break each other worse. Which was it? That's the rest of the story, son. And before I tell you, I need you to understand something. Cole Bennett wasn't a hero. He was a damaged man trying to outrun his demons. Your great-grandmother wasn't a saint. She was a desperate woman who had almost given up. Samuel leaned forward. His voice was quiet but firm. What made their story special wasn't perfection. It was choice. Every day they chose to keep trying, to keep fighting, to keep believing life could be more than just surviving. Benjamin nodded slowly, understanding what his grandfather was saying. PTSD, war trauma, feeling broken. These things didn't make you less. They made you human, and human beings could heal, could build, could love. Tell me the rest, Benjamin said. Samuel nodded. All right, but first add more wood to that fire. This next part gets cold before it gets warm. The first month at Ashford Ranch passed in a blur of flour dust and lye soap. Maggie woke at 4:30 every morning when the world was still dark and the Montana cold bit through cabin walls. By 5, she had fires going in the main house kitchen. By 6, breakfast or for 25 ranch hands. The work never stopped. Mrs. Ashford had paired her with the head cook, Ingrid Larson. 60-something, German. Stern as winter stone. Gray hair pulled into a bun so tight it seemed to stretch her face. Hands scarred from decades of kitchen work. Eyes that missed nothing. Ingrid spoke little but expected much. There was a right way to knead bread and every other way was wrong. The water temperature for yeast had to be precise. Not warm, not hot. Precise. The morning Maggie's first batch rose perfectly. Ingrid grunted. That was high praise. The physical toll was brutal. Maggie's hands bled from lye soap despite the salve. Her feet ached from standing on stone floors 12 hours a day. Her back hurt from scrubbing, kneading, carrying. But it was honest work, with purpose. She was grateful for every blister. The children transformed before her eyes. Within a week, color returned to their cheeks. Samuel's cough faded. Emma started laughing again. Real laughter that sounded like bells. Samuel helped in the stables. He had a natural gift with horses that surprised everyone, especially Cole. The boy could calm a skittish mare with nothing but his voice and patience. He remembered which horses preferred carrots over apples, which ones would bite if you approached from the left, which ones needed extra brushing because their coats tangled easily. Emma followed Maggie everywhere during the day, learning to cook and clean. But in the afternoon, she helped Mrs. Ashford tend the winter garden. The older woman taught her the names of herbs, how to coax life from frozen ground. Emma absorbed it all with serious concentration. Cole kept his distance those first 2 weeks. He was busy with his own work, breaking horses for spring roundup, training new mounts, repairing tack and equipment. But Maggie caught glimpses of him across the yard, working with a difficult horse in the breaking corral. Patient, steady, never raising his voice. She noticed how the other men respected him, how he handled crises calmly. Once a young gelding panicked and nearly kicked through a fence. Cole moved in without hesitation, grabbed the halter, spoke low and steady. Within minutes, the horse calmed. Their paths crossed in small ways. She saw him teaching Samuel how to curry a horse properly, the right pressure, the right direction, always talking low and steady. Once she watched from the kitchen window as he lifted Emma onto a gentle mare's back, walking beside her while she rode in circles, one hand always ready to catch her. One evening, Maggie found a tin outside her cabin door. No note, no name, but she knew. Inside was salve for bleeding hands, better than anything she could afford. She used it that night and every night after. Never mentioned it. Neither did he. The other workers had been suspicious at first. She was the widow Cole brought home, the charity case, the woman with baggage. They watched her, waited for her to fail. But Maggie had learned something during those months of starvation. She had nothing left to lose, which meant she had everything to prove. She worked harder than anyone, stayed later, never complained. When Ingrid's arthritis flared during a cold snap, Maggie took over the bread baking without being asked, got up at 4 instead of 4:30, had fresh loaves ready by breakfast. When Mrs. Ashford hosted a dinner for neighboring ranchers, Maggie worked 16 hours straight, made sure every detail was perfect. The beef roasted to exact doneness, the vegetables seasoned just right, the dessert presented beautifully. Slowly, suspicion transformed into respect. 3 weeks in, Maggie overheard Ingrid talking to Mrs. Ashford in the hallway. "Girl has best hands for bread I've seen in 20 years. Coming from Ingrid, that was a proclamation. One of the ranch hands, a man named Tom, made a crude comment about the pretty widow one afternoon. Cole happened to be within earshot. He didn't say a word, just walked over, looked at Tom. The man apologized immediately. Never happened again. End of the first month, Mrs. Ashford called Maggie to her office. "You've exceeded expectations. Work is excellent. Children are well behaved. No complaints." Pause. "You're permanent if you want to be." Maggie's eyes filled. "Thank you. Yes, I want to be." "Good, because Ingrid likes you, and Ingrid doesn't like anyone. That means something." Late February brought a visitor. Maggie was in the kitchen, elbow deep in bread dough, when Fletcher Hayes burst through the door. "Mrs. Ashford wants to see you. Main house office, right now." Her heart dropped. Had she done something wrong? "There's a man here, lawyer from the territorial capital. Says it concerns you." The office was a room Maggie had cleaned but never truly entered. Dark wood, leather chairs, a massive desk covered in ledgers and maps. Mrs. Ashford sat behind it. A well-dressed man in his 30s stood by the window. "Mrs. Fletcher," Mrs. Ashford said, "this is Charles Pemberton. He's investigating discrepancies in mining company records." Maggie's hand went to her throat. Pemberton turned, lawyer's bearing, sharp eyes. "Mrs. Fletcher, your husband was William Fletcher, died in a mine collapse 4 months ago." "Yes," her voice barely above a whisper. "And you were denied death benefits." "Yes, The company lawyer said there was a clause. Pemberton pulled papers from his satchel. There was no clause. The lawyer James Whitmore was falsifying documents, denying legitimate claims, pocketing portions of money that should have gone to families. The room tilted. We've identified 23 cases over the past 2 years. Total theft approximately $40,000. Mrs. Ashford's voice was sharp. Good God. That's not all. Pemberton's face was grim. We have evidence suggesting some of the accidents weren't accidents. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. What do you mean? Maggie's voice came out cold, flat. Pemberton spread documents on the desk. Your husband was part of a group trying to organize miners, better safety conditions, fair wages, the right to form a union. Maggie hadn't known this. William never told her, protecting her or ashamed of the risk. The mine company couldn't have a union, would cut into profits, so they hired specialists to handle the problem. Specialists, Mrs. Ashford leaned forward, enforcers, thugs, led by a man named Clayton Thornton. Maggie's blood ran cold. Thornton. You know him? No, but I've heard the name. Rustlers have been hitting ranches. The leader is called Clayton Thornton. Pemberton nodded. Same man, he and his crew do various jobs for people who can pay. The mine company paid them to intimidate union organizers. But intimidation became violence, and violence became murder. He pulled out another document. We have testimony from a former crew member. Says your husband's death wasn't an accident. A support beam was deliberately weakened. The collapse was triggered intentionally. The words landed like blows. William was murdered. Her husband was murdered, and she had believed it was an accident. They killed him. Maggie couldn't breathe. They killed him and then denied me his benefits. Yes, Mrs. Ashford's voice was fierce. What's being done about this? Whitmore's been arrested. He's talking, giving up names, but Thornton and his crew are still out there. We have warrants, but they're hiding, and they're dangerous. That evening, Cole came to the cabin, his first visit inside since that first day. Heard about the visitor, about the mine company. Maggie nodded, couldn't speak yet. Cole sat at her small table. I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. What? I knew. Pause. What? Not everything, but I knew something was wrong with your husband's death. Maggie's anger flared. You knew and didn't tell me. I didn't know for certain. Just had a feeling. Details didn't add up. What details? Cole's voice was measured. Military precision. When I first came to the territory 2 months before I found you, I was asking questions, trying to understand why so many accidents at the mine. I'm trained to spot patterns. War taught me that. And the pattern here was clear. Accidents always happened to men who had been talking about organizing. Why didn't you tell me? When you told me your husband died in a collapse, I put the pieces together. That's part of why I helped you. Wasn't just about Annie. Was also about owing something. Owing what? Cole's admission was quiet. Your husband died fighting for what was right, for justice, for protecting others. That's a soldier's death even if it didn't happen in war. And I came back from the war and spent 15 years doing nothing, drifting, hiding, helping you felt like maybe I could still do something that mattered. Maggie processed this. You should have told me. You're right, I should have. I'm sorry. Then there's more. What? Pemberton's investigation is going to make Thornton desperate. Cornered animals are most dangerous. And now Thornton knows about the witness testimony. What does that mean? Means he might try to eliminate witnesses, anyone who can tie him to the murders. Pause. Are we in danger? Cole's honesty was stark. I don't know, maybe. You knew William. You might know something you don't even realize is important. And Thornton's already been scouting this ranch. He knows I'm here, knows I've been asking questions. And the children. I won't let anything happen to them. Or to you, I swear it. Early March brought a letter addressed to Maggie in elegant script, Boston postmark. She opened it with trembling hands. My dear niece by marriage. It has come to my attention through mutual acquaintances that you are living on a cattle ranch in Montana Territory with my great-nephew and great-niece. I am William's only surviving family. I raised him from age 10 after his parents died. While I disapproved of his decision to marry beneath his station and drag you west, he was family. Those children are Fletcher's. They deserve to be raised with proper advantages: education, culture, moral guidance. I am prepared to provide them with a home in Boston, good schools, every opportunity. I will arrive in Fort Benton on March 20th to discuss arrangements. Sincerely, Mrs. Beatrice Fletcher. Maggie's hand shook. This woman wanted to take her children. She showed the letter to Mrs. Ashford. She can't do this. Can she? Mrs. Ashford read carefully. Blood relatives have some rights in territorial law, especially if they can argue children aren't being properly cared for. But they are. They're healthy, happy. I know that, but a Boston society woman with money and connections versus a working widow on a frontier ranch, a judge might see it differently. Everything Maggie had fought for, keeping her family together, threatened again. That night, Cole found Maggie on the cabin porch. She was crying. He sat beside her, didn't speak, just sat. Finally, tell me. She showed him the letter. Cole's face darkened as he read. She can't have them. She's family, she's rich, she can give them things I can't. She can give them money, you give them love. There's a difference. Courts don't always see it that way. Then we make them see it. Maggie looked at him. Cole's declaration was firm. You think I saved you in that blizzard just to watch someone take your kids away 3 months later? You've been through enough, lost enough. I'll be damned if I let some Boston society woman undo all the fighting you've done. Something shifted between them, something that had been building for weeks. Maggie whispered, "Why do you care so much?" Cole's honesty was raw. Because watching you with those kids, watching you bleed for them every single day, it reminds me what I was supposed to be fighting for during the war. Not territory, not politics, families, people taking care of each other. You're the bravest person I know, Maggie Fletcher, and I'll be damned if I abandon you now. He reached out, touched her hand. Just that, hand on hand, but it meant everything. March 20th arrived like Judgment Day. Beatrice Fletcher traveled with a maid and enough luggage for a month. She was 55 but looked older. Black dress still mourning William. Gray hair pulled back severe. Expression set in permanent disapproval. Mrs. Ashford received her in the parlor. Maggie was present. Mrs. Fletcher, Beatrice's voice was cultured, cold. You look rustic. Not a compliment. Mrs. Fletcher, thank you for traveling so far, but it wasn't necessary. The children and I are doing well. Are you living in servants' quarters on someone else's ranch, doing manual labor? Honest work. Beatrice insisted on meeting Samuel and Emma. They were brought from their lessons. Her reaction was measured. They look healthy. I suppose that's something. To Samuel, can you read? Yes, ma'am, I'm reading Tom Sawyer right now. That trashy novel in Boston, you'd read proper literature. Shakespeare, Milton. To Emma, do you know your sums? Yes, ma'am, up to multiplication. Adequate, but in Boston you'd have piano lessons, French, deportment. She turned to them fully. Children, your great aunt wants to give you a wonderful opportunity. Come live in Boston, big house, your own rooms, the best schools in the country. Samuel looked at Maggie. Then, no, thank you, ma'am. Beatrice was surprised. No, we're staying with Mama. Emma agreed. This is our home now. Beatrice's expression tightened. Mrs. Fletcher, might we speak privately? In Mrs. Ashford's office with the ranch owner present as a neutral party, Beatrice made her case. Mrs. Fletcher, I'm not a cruel woman. I can see you love those children. But love isn't enough. They need stability, security, a future. Her points were actually reasonable. You work 16 hours a day. When do you have time to properly educate them? You live in a 2-room cabin. In Boston, they'd have their own rooms. A library, a garden. This territory is dangerous. Rustlers, outlaws. In Boston, they'd be safe. What happens if you get sick, injured? Who cares for them? Then William was a Fletcher. He came from a good family. Those children deserve to know their heritage. Maggie's defense was passionate. They know their heritage. I tell them about William every day, but more importantly, they know they're loved. They know security doesn't come from a big house. It comes from people who'll fight for you. Beatrice's cruelty was surgical. You mean people like you, the woman who walked into a blizzard planning to abandon them. Maggie reeled. How did you? Mrs. Thornton in Fort Benton. She remembers you. Remembers your desperate inquiry about placing children. The shame burned. That darkest moment thrown back at her. Mrs. Ashford intervened. Mrs. Fletcher made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. She tried to save her children's lives the only way she saw available. That's not abandonment. That's sacrifice. Beatrice's counter was sharp. Call it what you will. But a judge will see a woman who attempted to surrender custody. That establishes precedent. Combined with current circumstances, manual labor, dangerous territory, lack of educational opportunities, I believe territorial court will rule in my favor. I'm filing for custody. The hearing will be in 6 weeks. I suggest you prepare. She stood, left. Silence after she was gone. Mrs. Ashford spoke first. She's not wrong about precedent. That day in the blizzard will haunt you. What do I do, Bio? Fight, get a lawyer, build your case. Show you're not that desperate woman anymore. And Mrs. Fletcher. That man, Cole, if you have feelings for him and he for you, now's the time to make it clear. Family structure matters to courts. Widow alone versus widow with stable partner makes a difference. That night, Cole came to the cabin, saw Maggie's face. It's bad, isn't it? She's filing for custody. Cole's jaw tightened. Then we fight. She has money, lawyers, social standing. And you have truth. You have children who love you. You have a community that respects you. Maggie's despair was evident. It won't be enough. She's right about precedent. I was going to give them away. Cole sat. Maggie, look at me. She did. I love you. The words landed like thunder. I've loved you since that day in the blizzard. Watching you stumble through snow, half frozen, still fighting to save your children. I love your strength, your stubbornness, the way you make bread sing, the way you've turned that cabin into a home, the way you fight for those kids. He pulled out a ring. Simple gold band, nothing fancy. I was going to wait longer, court you properly, but we don't have time for proper. Marry me. Not because it helps the custody case, though it will. Marry me because I want to be your husband. Want to be Samuel's father and Emma's father. Want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. Want to build a life that honors what you had with William while creating something new. Maggie's tears came freely. Cole, will you marry me? Yes. God, yes. 2 weeks later, a week before the wedding, trouble arrived on horseback. Maggie was in the kitchen. Afternoon light slanting through windows. Then a shout outside. Riders armed, everyone rushed to windows. 6 men on horseback, led by a man with a scar across his face. Missing finger on his left hand. Clayton Thornton. He shouted toward the barn. Cole Bennett, I know you're here, need to talk. Cole emerged, walking steady, hands away from his guns. I'm here. Heard you've been asking questions about the mine, about certain accidents. Maybe. That's dangerous, unhealthy. Cole's response was calm. So is murdering minors, cheating widows, running when the law comes. Thornton laughed. Law's got nothing on me. Witness recanted. Pemberton's investigation fell apart. Then the threat. But I know you've been talking, and I know the widow's here. William Fletcher's widow. She might know things that could cause problems. So here's how this works. You stop asking questions. Widow keeps her mouth shut. Children grow up with their mother. Or accidents start happening. Fire in a kitchen. Sick horse kicks a child. Random tragedy. Your choice, Bennett. Cole's face was expressionless. But Maggie knew him now, saw the fury controlled. Get off this ranch. 6 weeks, Bennett. That's how long you got to make the right choice. He turned his horse, rode away. That evening, Mrs. Ashford called a meeting. Cole, Maggie, Fletcher Hayes, and the senior ranch hands. The marshal from Fort Benton summoned via telegram. 3 threats converging. Beatrice's custody case in 4 weeks. Clayton Thornton's threat of violence. The mine company conspiracy trying to stay buried. The marshal's assessment was grim. Thornton's right about one thing. The witness recanted, probably threatened. Without his testimony, we can't prove murder. Need other evidence or another witness. Cole's idea was strategic. Thornton said the witness recanted, didn't say the witness died. Maybe he can be convinced to talk again. If he's protected. Mrs. Ashford turned practical. In the custody case, Beatrice Fletcher isn't going away. Maggie's resolve hardened. I have an idea about that, but it requires honesty, complete honesty, about why I was in that blizzard, about Williams organizing, about the mine company, about everything. Cole cautioned, that's risky, makes you look connected to violence, or makes me look like a woman whose husband was murdered for standing up for justice. Truth is complicated, but it's still truth, and I'm done hiding from it. Late that night, Samuel came to Maggie and Cole on the porch. I heard about the great aunt trying to take us. Sam, you should be sleeping. Can't sleep. I'm scared. Cole pulled the boy close. Come here. Sam sat between them. Are we going to lose Mama again? Maggie's promise was firm. No, baby. We're not going to lose each other. But that lady, Cole explained gently, your great aunt loves you in her way. She wants what she thinks is best. But she's wrong. The best thing for you is being with your mama. And we're going to prove that. How? By showing the judge the truth, that you're loved, safe, happy, growing into a fine young man, and by me becoming your father. Officially. So there's no question you have family. Real family. Sam looked up at Cole. You're going to marry Mama. If she'll have me, Sam smiled. She will, and I'm glad. Yeah. Yeah, because you're a good man, Mr. Cole, and you make Mama happy. Emma appeared in the doorway. Are we having a family meeting without me? Everyone laughed. First laugh in Oz. On that porch under Montana stars, broken people began healing. Not because problems were solved, but because they were facing them together. Wyoming, 1918, Benjamin stared at the fire. So you had 3 problems at once. Custody, mine conspiracy, rustlers. That's right, and they were all connected. Beatrice wanted us because she thought we needed saving. Thornton wanted us silent because we were a threat to his freedom, and I was caught in the middle. What did you do? Samuel looked at his grandson. What would you do, Ben? If everything you loved was threatened, Benjamin thought. I'd fight, but I'd fight smart. Exactly. That's what we learned from Cole, from war, from life. Fighting isn't always about guns. Sometimes it's about strategy, patience, knowing when to push and when to wait. But mostly it's about choosing what you're fighting for, not what you're fighting against. Benjamin's understanding was visible. You were fighting for family. We were fighting for the right to be family. There's a difference. Those first 3 months on the ranch, December, January, February, we were surviving. But March was when we decided to start living. And living means fighting for what matters. Benjamin nodded, saw the parallel to his own situation. He'd been surviving since coming back from the war. Maybe it was time to start living. Tell me how it ended. Samuel smiled. How do you think it ended? We're here, aren't we? But the path from there to here, that's where the real story lives. And that's where you'll learn the most important lesson of all. He added wood to the fire. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with guns. They're fought with truth, with courage, with choosing to stand up when everything says to surrender. That's what the next part is about. The courtroom, the showdown, the moment when everything we'd built almost came crashing down, and the choices we made that changed everything. Cole rode out 2 weeks before the custody hearing. Marshal Garrett went with him. They were searching for a ghost. A man named Tobias McKinney, who had testified once then, vanished after recanting his story. Based on leads from the marshal's contacts, they tracked him to a small settlement 50 miles south, a collection of weathered buildings clinging to frozen ground, the kind of place people went to disappear. McKinney lived under an assumed name. Mid-20s, haunted eyes. He jumped when they knocked on his door. I got nothing to say, I recanted. It's over. Cole's approach was measured, not aggressive. I'm not here to force you. I'm here to give you a chance to do the right thing. I did the right thing. I stayed alive. The marshal spoke. Thornton threatened you. Thornton did more than threaten. McKinney's voice shook. Showed me what happens to people who talk. Man named Peters. Used to work with us. Testified in a different case. They found him in the river. Cole understood fear. I know what that's like. Lived with it 5 years during the war. Another 15 years after. But I also know what it's like to run from the truth. And it doesn't bring peace. Just a different kind of haunted. He paused. Let the words settle. William Fletcher, you knew him. Yeah. Good man, the best. Only one of us who tried to do right by the workers. Cole leaned forward. He had a wife, 2 kids, 8 and 5 years old. Company denied them benefits, left them starving. I found her in a blizzard trying to walk her children to town to give them away, because she had no other choice. McKinney's resistance was weakening. Guilt worked on his face. What do you want from me? Come back. Testify again. We'll protect you. The marshal's got the territorial governor involved now. This isn't a local case anymore. And if I don't, Cole's honesty was stark. Then Thornton keeps hurting people. More widows, more orphans, more families destroyed. And you live the rest of your life knowing you could have stopped it. Long silence. McKinney looked out the window. At nothing. At everything. Fletcher's kids. They're really okay now. They're alive, healthy, growing, because someone helped their mother when she had nothing. And you're that someone. I'm one of them, but more people helped. Good people. People who believe justice matters. McKinney turned back. I testified the first time because Peters convinced me it was right. Then they killed him and I got scared. But running hasn't helped. Can't sleep. Can't stop thinking about Fletcher. About his kids. Pause. If I testify again, you swear you'll protect me. The marshal's oath was solemn. On my badge. On my life. You'll have protection until Thornton's in custody or dead. McKinney's condition was simple. And I want to meet her, Fletcher's widow. Want to tell her I'm sorry. She'll appreciate that. 1 week before the hearing, Cole and Maggie married. Small ceremony at Ashford Ranch. Reverend from Fort Benton. The ranch community gathered. Marshal Garrett stood witness. A few townspeople who had come to know Maggie attended. Notably absent was Beatrice Fletcher, though she remained in town at the boarding house, preparing for battle. The ceremony was simple, traditional, but meaningful. Cole's vows came from somewhere deep. Margaret Fletcher, from the moment I saw you in that blizzard fighting to save your children, I knew you were the strongest person I'd ever meet. I've spent 15 years running from life because I was afraid of pain. But you taught me that pain's the price of living, and living is worth the price. His voice was steady. Sure, I promised to be a father to Samuel and Emma, to honor William's memory by raising his children with love and strength. I promised to fight beside you, not for you, because you don't need saving. You need a partner. And I promise that whatever comes, custody battles, threats, storms, we face it together. Maggie's vows matched his honesty. Cole Bennett, you appeared when I needed you most. But more than that, you stayed when you could have left. You gave me back my hope, my children, their future, myself back to myself. I'm not the same woman you found in that blizzard. I'm stronger, braver. And that's partly because you showed me what strength looks like. She took a breath. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our pasts while creating a new future. I promise to love you through the easy days and the hard ones, through peaceful times and storms. And I promise that the family we're building you, me, Sam, Emma, that's what matters. Not blood, not law, love and choice. The Reverend turned to the children. Sam, Emma, do you accept Cole as your father? Together we do. Simple words. But they changed everything. The reception was modest, food and music in the main house. But everyone knew the real test came next week, in the territorial courthouse, where Beatrice would try to undo everything they had built. The morning of the hearing arrived cold and clear. Fort Benton's territorial courthouse was an imposing building, stone and timber, built to last. Inside, the courtroom smelled of wood polish and old paper. Judge Thaddeus Morrison presided. 42 years old, former Union Army captain. lost his leg at Gettysburg, known for fairness but also for understanding frontier realities. He walked with a cane carved from oak. His eyes were sharp, missing nothing. Beatrice Fletcher sat with her lawyer, expensive suit from the territorial capital, confident bearing. Maggie and Cole sat with Jonathan Westbrook, local lawyer, solid but outmatched in resources. Sam and Emma were in the gallery. Unusual, but the judge allowed it. This concerns them, they should hear. Mrs. Ashford sat behind Maggie, Ingrid beside her. Ranch hands filled the back rows. Marshal Garrett was present, armed, security measure due to Thornton's threats. And in the front row, nervous but determined, sat Tobias McKinney. Beatrice's lawyer opened strong, painted a picture of a devoted aunt who had raised William, a woman of means and education, stable Boston home versus unstable frontier life. He argued that the best interests of the children required proper education, safety culture. His key points were surgical. Mrs. Bennett, I use her new name, though the marriage conveniently occurred 1 week ago, attempted to abandon these children 4 months ago. She now works 16-hour days, leaving children largely unsupervised. She lives in dangerous territory. Rustlers, violence, recent threats to this very ranch. The children's father died in mysterious circumstances. The widow may be involved in a dangerous investigation. Mrs. Beatrice Fletcher can provide everything: education, culture, social advantages. Westbrook's approach was different. He painted Maggie as a mother who made an impossible choice in impossible circumstances, who had built a new life through hard work and determination. Children thriving, healthy, happy, educated. Recently married to a stable, responsible man. War hero, respected community member, strong community support. His points were emotional but grounded. Walking into that blizzard wasn't abandonment. It was an attempt to save children's lives. Since the rescue, Mrs. Bennett has worked tirelessly to provide. Her marriage to Mr. Bennett isn't convenient timing. It's the result of genuine partnership built over 3 months. The children want to stay with their mother. Their wishes should be considered. And Mrs. Beatrice Fletcher abandoned William in life, only appeared after his death to claim his children. Beatrice took the stand first. She presented well, cultured, articulate, genuinely seemed to believe she was doing the right thing. I raised William from age 10, gave him everything: education, values, preparation for life. He threw it away chasing fool's gold, married beneath himself, died young and poor. Those children are Fletchers. They deserve better than poverty, better than frontier chaos. I can give them that. Stable home, the best schools, introduction to society, a future. Westbrook's cross-examination was pointed. When William was alive and struggling, did you help? We were estranged. Did you send money? No. Did you visit? No. Did you write offering support? No. So you abandoned him when he needed you, but now want his children. Beatrice's defense was proud. William made his choices. I respected that. But children shouldn't suffer for his mistakes. Mrs. Bennett also made choices, hard choices, but she made them to save her children. When did you choose them over your pride? No good answer came. Then Westbrook called Tobias McKinney. The young man took the stand, nervous but determined. I worked for Clayton Thornton. Did things I'm not proud of. Pause. The courtroom was silent, including murdering William Fletcher. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison gavelled for order. McKinney continued, voice shaking but steady. Mine company hired Thornton to deal with union organizing, paid us to intimidate. But intimidation became violence. Fletcher was targeted because he was the leader. Good man, convinced others to stand up. We weakened a support beam, triggered the collapse, made it look like an accident. Beatrice's lawyer objected. Your Honor, this is irrelevant to the custody matter. Westbrook countered. It's entirely relevant. Shows William Fletcher was murdered for standing up for justice. Shows his children come from a man of courage and principle. And shows why Mrs. Bennett was left in poverty. Not because her husband was a failure, because he was murdered and the company covered it up. Judge Morrison allowed the testimony to continue. McKinney spoke directly to Maggie now. After Fletcher died, we helped the company lawyer deny benefits. Part of the cover-up. Then when the investigation started, Thornton made me recant, threatened me, showed me what happens to people who talk. But I can't live with it anymore. Fletcher deserves justice. His family deserves the truth. The impact changed everything. William Fletcher wasn't a failed miner. He was a murdered hero. Then Westbrook called Samuel. The 8-year-old walked forward, small, but he carried himself with dignity that silenced the room. Judge Morrison was gentle. Sam, tell me, do you want to live with your great-aunt Beatrice in Boston? No, sir. Why not? Sam's answer was clear, thoughtful. Because she didn't care about us when Papa was alive. Never helped when we were starving. Now she wants us because she thinks we're supposed to be Fletchers. But we're not just Fletchers, we're also Mama's children. And Cole's children now. The judge leaned forward. Tell me about the blizzard, Sam. The boy took a breath. Mrs. Fletcher's lawyer said Mama tried to abandon us, but that's not what happened. I was dying. I told Mama to let me rest in the snow. You know what she did? Pause for effect. She dragged me up, made me keep going, because she knew if I rested, I'd die. That's not abandonment, Osman. That's saving my life. He looked at Beatrice directly. Then Mr. Cole appeared. And you know what Mama did? She followed him. Trusted a stranger because she had no choice. Put her pride aside, her fear aside. Did what she had to do for us. His voice grew stronger. And now we're happy, we're safe, we're together. I go to school, I'm learning to work horses, I'm reading books. Emma's learning to cook. She's making friends. She's not scared anymore. Great Aunt Beatrice can give us money, but Mama gives us love, and that's what matters. He paused. Final statement coming. So if you're asking, do I want to leave Mama and Cole and go to Boston with a stranger who never cared before? Answer is no. I want to stay with my family. My real family. Not because of blood, because they chose us, and we choose them. The courtroom was silent. Even Beatrice looked shaken. The judge called a brief recess. Outside the courthouse, Maggie stepped out for air, Cole and the children with her. The spring sun was warm, promise of better weather. Then horses, 6 of them, coming fast. Clayton Thornton led them, scar vivid across his face, missing finger obvious as he held the reins. He'd heard about McKinney's testimony, knew it was over. This was his last play. 2 of his men dismounted, moved fast towards Sam and Emma. Cole reacted instantly, put himself between the children and the men, hand on his gun. Don't. Thornton's desperation was evident. Can't let that witness stand Bennett, and can't let you interfere. You're going to kill children in the middle of town in front of the courthouse. Thornton's madness showed. I'm dead anyway. Might as well take you with me. The standoff held. Cole armed, military-trained, protective. Thornton's men 6 against 1. Maggie shielding children with her body. Marshal Garrett inside didn't know what was happening. Townspeople watching terrified. Then Sam broke from Maggie, ran to Cole's side. Sam, get back. No, we're family. We stand together. An 8-year-old boy, standing beside Cole, facing down outlaws. The moment galvanized others. Fletcher Hayes stepped forward. Ranch hands who came to testify. Even Judge Morrison, one-legged but armed, emerged from the courthouse. Thornton realized he was outmatched. Not in numbers, in resolve. Marshal Garrett arrived with deputies, surrounded Thornton's crew. Clayton Thornton, you're under arrest for the murder of William Fletcher and about 6 other charges. Thornton tried to draw. Cole was faster, single shot. Thornton went down. His men surrendered. After order was restored, after Thornton's body was removed, after everyone caught their breath, court reconvened. Judge Morrison spoke. I've heard enough. I'm ready to rule. He looked at Beatrice. Mrs. Fletcher, your concern for your great-nephew and great-niece may be genuine, and I don't doubt you could provide material advantages. But material advantages aren't everything. Perhaps aren't even the most important thing. His reasoning was measured. I've watched these children today. Watched Samuel stand beside his stepfather facing armed outlaws. Watched Emma cling to her mother with absolute trust. That's not the behavior of neglected children. That's the behavior of children who know they're loved, who know their family will protect them. He turned to Maggie. Mrs. Bennet made a desperate choice in desperate circumstances. Some might call it abandonment. I call it sacrifice. Since then, she's worked every day to build a life for her children. She's earned the respect of her community. She's provided a stable home. More importantly, she's taught her children what real strength looks like. Not wealth, not social position, courage, determination, love. The judge paused, and Samuel's words struck me. Not because of blood, because they chose us, and we choose them. Family isn't just blood, it's commitment, it's choice, it's showing up every day and fighting for each other. His ruling was clear. Custody remains with Margaret Bennet. Beatrice Fletcher's petition is denied. To Beatrice directly, if you truly care about these children, you'll accept this ruling. You'll recognize that they're loved and safe and happy, and perhaps you'll work to build a relationship with them on their terms, not yours. He struck his gavel. Court adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Beatrice approached Maggie. Her face was composed, but her eyes were red. You won. It's not about winning, it's about family. Beatrice's admission came slowly. I was wrong about many things. William loved you, I see that now. He chose well, even if I couldn't see it then. And you're stronger than I credited. Pause. Those children are fortunate to have you. Maggie's grace was genuine. They're also fortunate to have Fletcher heritage. If you'd like to be part of their lives, truly part, not controlling, there's a place for you. Write to them, visit occasionally, share stories about William's childhood, but on our terms, as family, not as judge. Beatrice considered this. I'd like that, in time. The invitation's open. They parted, not friends, but not enemies. Two women who both loved the same children, finding a way forward. 6 months passed, September 1867. Life on Ashford Ranch had settled into a good rhythm. Maggie was now head cook. Ingrid had retired, passing the kitchen to younger hands with her blessing. Emma helped with baking, learning recipes that had been perfected over decades. Cole continued as head wrangler, training horses, teaching Sam everything about horsemanship. The boy had a gift. Everyone saw it, and Maggie was pregnant, due in February. The changes rippled outward. McKinney's testimony at Thornton's trial led to convictions. The crew was sentenced. The mine company was forced to pay restitution to all cheated widows. Maggie received $800 plus ongoing payments. Mining safety laws were passed in the territory. William Fletcher was recognized posthumously as a hero, but most importantly, the family was thriving. Together, safe, happy. February 1868 brought new life. Maggie's labor began on a cold night, snow falling, of course. But this time the snow was gentle, not threatening. Cole stayed beside her through the entire labor, holding her hand, speaking low encouragement. Military calm applied to domestic crisis. The doctor attended. A real doctor this time, not a desperate situation. Just before dawn, a baby girl was born. Healthy, strong lungs that announced her arrival to the whole ranch. They named her Grace, Grace Fletcher Bennet. Grace for unearned favor, for second chances, for mercy in blizzards. Sam and Emma met their sister with awe, gentle touches, immediate love. Sam, now 9, held her with the same care he'd learned with frightened horses. Emma, 6, kissed her forehead and proclaimed her the prettiest baby ever born. Cole held his daughter, tears streaming down his weathered face. We did it. We built this. Maggie, exhausted but radiant, smiled. We did. From nothing. From blizzard. From desperation. We built a family. A real family. Wyoming, 1918. Samuel finished his story. The fire had burned low. Night had deepened around them. Benjamin sat in silence, processing. Finally, he spoke. So great-grandmother Maggie almost gave you away, but didn't, because great-grandfather Cole appeared. That's right. And then you fought for each other, through the custody battle, through threats, through everything. We did. Benjamin's question was raw. Did you ever forgive her for almost giving you away? Samuel's answer was immediate. There was nothing to forgive. She was trying to save us. Made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. But do you ever wonder what would have happened if Mr. Cole hadn't appeared? Every day for years, But eventually I realized something. Cole appearing wasn't just luck, wasn't just chance, it was the result of choices. My mother choosing to fight one more day, Cole choosing to ride north instead of south, Mrs. Ashford choosing to hire us. Life isn't about luck, it's about choices. And when you make brave choices, often brave people appear to help. He leaned toward his grandson. You came back from the war broken, haunted, feeling like you can't connect to anyone. Cole felt the same way, spent 15 years running from it, but he chose to stop running, chose to help, chose to connect, chose to heal. And that choice, that one choice to stop in a blizzard saved 3 lives, created a family, built a legacy. Benjamin saw the parallel. You're saying I need to choose, to stop running from what happened, to connect, to heal. I'm saying you're not broken. You're wounded. There's a difference. Broken can't be fixed. Wounded can heal. But healing requires help, requires connection, requires choosing to trust people. Samuel's final words carried the weight of decades. Your great-grandfather Cole taught me something that winter. Sometimes mercy appears in blizzards. Sometimes it wears boots and rides a black horse. For you, maybe mercy looks like family who loves you, community that respects you, a future that needs you. But you have to choose it, have to stop running, have to believe healing's possible. Can you do that? Benjamin looked at the fire, at his grandfather, at possibility. I can try. That's all anyone can do, try, and try again, and keep trying until one day you realize you're not trying anymore. You're just living. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Benjamin asked, tell me about Grace, your little sister. What happened to her? Samuel smiled. That's a story for another night, but I'll tell you this. She grew up knowing she was born from a second chance, from mercy, from people choosing love over fear, and she lived her whole life trying to give others the same chance. She became a teacher, taught on the frontier, helped families, gave second chances. That's what legacy is, Ben. Not money or land, it's passing forward what was given to you. Cole gave us mercy, we passed it forward, and now you get to decide. What will you pass forward? Montana, 1955 elderly. Benjamin stood at the grave markers. He was in his 50s now, gray in his hair, lines on his face, but his eyes were clear. Cole Bennett, 1800 to 1909. Margaret Fletcher Bennett, 1838 to 1912. His grandson stood beside him, 10 years old, curious eyes. Great-grandpa Ben, tell me about them. About the blizzard. Benjamin smiled, the same smile his grandfather Samuel had worn. Let me tell you about the winter when Mercy wore boots and rode a black horse through Montana snow. About a widow who walked into a storm to save her children. About a soldier who couldn't save his sister, but saved a family instead. Let me tell you about second chances, about choosing to heal, about building a family from broken pieces. He put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Because that's our legacy. Not perfection, not wealth. The courage to keep choosing love when life gives every reason to choose fear. They walked away together, 4 generations connected by a story of blizzard courage and mercy. The camera pulled back, revealing hundreds of other graves. The Bennett family plot, all stemming from that one night in December 1866. Snow began to fall, light, gentle, beautiful, not threatening, peaceful, like mercy. The headstone stood silent witness. Beside Cole and Margaret were others. Samuel Fletcher Bennett, 1858 to 1945. Emma Bennett Thornton, 1861 to 1942. Grace Fletcher Bennett Morrison, 1868 to 1951. And new graves too. Generations who came after. All carrying forward what had been given in that blizzard. A family built not on blood alone, but on choice, on courage, on the stubborn belief that love could triumph over loss, that second chances were real, that sometimes when you needed help most, it appeared from unexpected places. Sometimes it wore a widow's determination, sometimes a soldier's quiet strength. Sometimes it looked like a stern ranch owner giving someone a chance. Sometimes it was a judge who valued truth over convention. But always, always it came down to choice. The choice to help instead of pass bombing. The choice to fight instead of surrender. The choice to build instead of destroy. That was the legacy. Not the land, though the Bennett Ashford Ranch still thrived. Not the money, though the family had prospered. Not even the sheer number of descendants, though they numbered in the hundreds now. The legacy was simpler and more profound. When you're in your own blizzard, keep walking. When you see someone in theirs, stop. And when mercy appears in whatever form it takes, have the courage to accept it. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be saved. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is save someone else. That was what Cole Bennett taught Margaret Fletcher on a frozen December day in 1866. That was what she taught her children, what they taught theirs, what Benjamin would teach his grandson, what that boy would teach his own children someday. The snow fell heavier now, covering the graves in white, clean, pure, new. In the distance, the ranch house lights glowed warm against the gathering dusk. Smoke rose from chimneys. Life continued. Families gathered. Stories were told. And somewhere in the space between memory and hope, between past and future, the echo of hoofbeats on snow, the ghost of a black horse named Timber, the shadow of a man who stopped when he could have ridden past, mercy appearing in a blizzard, changing everything, forever.